I'm Ashley.
And I'm Jada.
And welcome back.
Today we're going to be talking about something really personal to us, and it is addiction. And so not the serious kind, because they definitely have that out there. We're talking about books.
Books. Lots and lots of books. Now, before you click off, because you're like, they're talking about books, the title seemed like it was going to be like so much serious
Scandalous stuff.
Yes, it's funny, scandalous-ish book reading
It's
stuff.
embarrassing.
Yes, very embarrassing stuff. So let's just say one of the reasons that I thought of this was earlier I started to say earlier this year, but it's 2021. So I keep forgetting, you write stuff for, like, you write 2020 over and over again, and you have to cross it out and be like, 2021. But last year on Hook, Line, and Chill, another channel I'm on, if you're not familiar with it, Fishy Channel, the host, Michael, had asked a question of, like, how many books a year do you read? Because he knows that I read a lot. And I was like, on the average of the last decade, I've read probably about 200 books a year. And people in the comments were like, I call BS and all of this stuff.
I know, tearing into her.
I'm sorry that you guys don't read a lot, but I do.
That's why it's called addicted. Okay. Because you read so much.
Yes.
I read quite a bit as well, but since Christian and I started seeing each other, we do things together. And we have read books together actually, but in general, you read as like something you do on your own. And so I've not read as much.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that happens is, like, once we start reading a book, we just read it until we're finished a lot of times.
Which is fine if you're reading, like, maybe a 200-300 page book, because you can do that 4 or 5 hours or something like that. But when you're reading books that are, and series that are,
she's bringing Harry Potter up. We've not read that in the last decade.
I've read that in the last decade.
Oh, well, I mean, rereading it, but for the first time.
Yeah. Well, I did this one in the last decade, and this is over 700 pages long in a book series of stuff. And
no, we don't have a lot of books, like physical books.
This has turned into
I know,
a
we
book.
love books, like going to the library and getting them, but you return those. When we left to go to Korea the first time, which has been 8 years ago now. Oh my gosh, so long ago. We had a yard sale and we had hundreds of books. Like, there was, we put an ad out for the yard sale, and a used book lady came to the yard sale, and she was like, people...
A lady who owned a used bookstore.
Yeah.
A used book lady.
I'm sorry.
What is that?
And she was like, I come to these sometimes, and people have like 20 books or something, and I'll try to read through them.
We had like 300.
And she was like, this is a freaking gold mine,
Because the house that we were living in had built-in bookshelves, and I had a bookshelf in my bedroom, and I
had a bookshelf
packed with books, all of them. And so,
like, bending and bowing, on this stuff. And so we had a lot. But now we don't actually, like, have a ton of them. Because, one, we do, like, if it's not the library, we do the give a book, take a book stuff whenever we see it. Just the other day, Ashley did that, but there were only puzzles in there. And so she's like, I'll take these puzzles. You can have the books.
You guys saw the Franklin Square pictures that we put up on Instagram. If you didn't, go check out our Instagram. But there was take a book, leave a book. So we thought we'd check it out and while we were walking around the square, and it had these really cute puzzles in it. And I was like, take them. And Jenna's like, you have to leave something. I was like, I got books in my car. Let's be serious. I popped my trunk. There's like a dozen books in my trunk. I was like, just grab 2 of them and let's change it.
And then I was like, you need to have, like, good books. They can't be just, like, little
and they were. It was, like,
books.
Sandra Brown and then James Patterson.
I know.
I was like, so
like,
please.
people know who these people are.
I was like, James Patterson is super famous. Sandra Brown is too. But I will say, most of the books that do, like, a little romance in them, not all the books that I read, but like probably 90% of the books. It doesn't even have to be the focus. It could be like the backstory. But I do like a little
romance and like sometimes like government agencies kind of thing, and a few supernatural, as the two that she's brought up are both supernatural. But one of
fantasy, I think more fantasy.
But one of them, okay, so this is where we're going to lead to one of the embarrassing stories, because she did bring up Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, which is not even, like, my favorite one.
No.
That they have. It's just
like the one I grabbed.
Yeah.
The color's good for it.
So, the last book in the series, guys, spoiler! If you've not seen or watched,
you've tried like a decade
Harry Potter,
to get it.
Just, like, skip a minute or two. But, the last book, and like what I said, when I first bring a book, I'm just like, we're both like, when can we read it next? When can we read it next? Every time. And so the last one, I was reading at university whenever it came out, and I am like, I'm in my second Temple Judaism class, and before class starts, like, I'm trying to like read, and it is right when Dobby dies. Okay, so I'm filled with other university students, my peers, and I'm just like, just happened. I mean, I'm crying. I'm straight crying in class. I'm trying to like be quiet and wiping myself. And I've got like some of my classmates that are like, Jada, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Like I'm honestly getting started. That's not the first time we've cried about it. We were painting on a job one time. And so,
just talking about
it. And we were just talking about it, and we both started crying.
Yeah, it happens so often.
And we were like, and we were talking about Snape as well, and we cried. Again, sorry if you guys don't read that stuff, but the point is how embarrassing it is to be caught crying in public over a book.
My embarrassing moment of breaking down and crying is, so, like a lot of people in their early 20s, they might not have the money to always spend. Books are expensive, like, especially when they first come out and they're hardbacks. So they don't have like $25. Maybe the library doesn't have the book that you're interested in.
Oh my gosh, the library will have a wait of like 2 months because everyone's interested in it.
Yeah. And so I used to, like, books that were manageable to read in a couple of hours, I'd go to Barnes & Noble and I'd sit in one of their comfy chairs and I'd knock one out in a sitting.
Did you really?
Did you not know that?
No!
Oh, yeah. I bought loads of books for Barnes & Noble, though, so I feel like, it's okay.
Yeah, but the person that they personally, Barnes & Noble took care of, baby.
So, the book...
They shouldn't put those chairs there.
The book is The Shack. They did make it into a movie years later. And
I read that. I got it from our church library. Yep,
yeah.
Our church has a library.
Yeah. So, well, I was in the middle one. There's multiple different places for chairs, but I was in the middle one, cracked it open, and I'm reading the foreword to the book. And it is the writer of the book saying that his friend is not able to express in words or write well, and he's an author, so he is writing this book to tell his friend's story. And then the book starts, and it's about a man's daughter being kidnapped by a serial killer and finding her dead.
This is not the book I thought it was. This is not the one I read from church.
No. This is a one of those type of books, though. It's about the man's spiritual journey.
I was like, maybe I got the book from
like
somewhere else.
He met different versions of, like,
okay,
God.
Maybe I did get it from, but I was like, ooh, maybe this is a
but
wrong one.
The thing is, I did not read the synopsis. I just knew that this was a really popular book in the Christian section, so I was like, let me grab it and read it. So for me, I thought when I first started it that this was a true story based on the foreword to the book. So when I'm reading about this man finding his daughter being kidnapped and killed, I think that it's true. So I break down so hard in the middle of Barnes & Noble, like, crying.
Let's be honest, she would have cried anyways.
But thinking that it was based on a true story, I was like a blubbery mess. I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I can finish reading this and stuff like that. I did. But, and then eventually discovered that it was not based on a true story, given how the book developed.
Given how the book developed.
Yes.
I'm surprised. This is before Google, I'm thinking. Because you could have just Googled and Bill was like,
No,
what's a Shaq the True story?
No, I mean, there was Google, but like I said, I was picking up a random book. I read the synopsis after that, and the synopsis, you knew that it wasn't. So, not that people can't, like, experience God in their times of need and stuff, but it was, like, full on, like, was a person there, like, growing gardens. And anyways, doesn't matter. So, this book series is called The Mortal Instruments, and she has, like, created this entire new world.
Cassandra Clare.
Yes. Well, this is a young adult book, and one that I had not picked up. However, my younger brother...
We're related. He's both of our younger brothers.
Our younger brother was reading it, and I was like, oh,
our younger brother doesn't always read.
No, not at all. I mean, not... Sorry, Cody. But no, he's not a big reader. And so I was like, this is something that we could talk about. So I went to the library, or there's a discount bookstore and stuff like that. There used to be a couple of them, and now it's like slowly dwindled down. And I used to buy from there all the time. But so I got the book, and I had work the next day in the morning at like 10 maybe, I think it was. And I'd started it that evening, and all of the books are about 700 pages, give or take a little bit. And I did not think this through, because I thought this would be one that, I could sit down and start back up. No, instead, I started in the evening and just didn't sleep. I stayed up the entire night to finish it before I went to work. I was so engrossed. And then it ended on a cliffhanger, so work was miserable because all I could think was like, I gotta get the second book.
And then I read it, and Ashley and I finished reading the series.
Yeah, because she has like multiple series in this universe.
And our brother has it.
Yeah, and he has
We're like, you should read it.
So good. And then they made it into a movie, and I was like, you guys messed that up a little bit. Which I have nothing against books being made into movies. I love it.
Yeah.
It's like my Reader's Digest version of when I want to read one of the books that are really big like this, but I don't want to like dedicate the next whatever hours to it. So I'm like, I just pop in a movie for 2 hours.
Sometimes when I am reading a book that has already like a Harry Potter series, we keep going back to that. I swear we read more than that. But because we started reading that when we were like really, really young, and then they started making the movies, but the books that kept coming out, it's like when I'm reading it, I picture the people who play those characters already in my head as I'm reading it. And so like, it just makes sense sometimes to watch it. And sometimes though, I'm telling you, Mama before has been like, I cannot watch this movie with you guys. I cannot watch this movie with you guys, because we'll sit there and be like, they changed this from the book and they changed this from the book. Why'd they change this? They should have left this the same. They edited this. This should have gone in. This was really important for this reason. And she'll just be like, good night, ladies.
Yeah, like the Shadowhunters is a television series that they created off of the Mortal Instruments series.
Which is the series she just told you about that our brother read.
And I was like, what is this? Because
it's just taken, and that's sometimes where I have to, like, when I go in to watch a movie, I'll have to be like, this was a television show, and I just have to tell myself, like, this is not, they've just based the world and the characters. They're not going to have the same plot lines.
Not at all.
And they're
Which confused me about this, because there's so many books that they could have pulled from that, like, they could have done, like, a book a year in the series. For a season.
Reading Game of Thrones and then watching it. And Ashley hasn't read the Game of Thrones, but she's watched.
I'm sorry. J.R. Martin's writing,
he tends to
drone on.
Really describe things.
Over descriptor is what I would say. Like, oh my gosh.
And I would be like, why'd they do this? Because like what she said, I'd be like, there's so much material there. I don't understand why they've just like cut this out and stuff. Which is why sometimes I just have to be like, no one cares about this, but we're watching something.
And then sometimes the books that we'll refer to is because it's books that we've reread. Like, we have another one over here. It's a Linda Howard book. Like, Linda Howard, I've pretty much reread, like, every book of hers and stuff. But sometimes someone, like, at work in the past or something, they'll be like, what are you reading? And I'm like, oh, let me look. Because it's just something that was recommended on my Kindle, and I read the synopsis and I was like, I like it, download it and read it. Kindle Unlimited, it's just like,
unless it's
read
an author that I just like read, and sometimes even then I'll just be like, they'll be like, what book you reading? And I won't say the book, I'll just be like, oh, it's this author. But unless I've reread it because I really enjoy it, or because maybe some of them are like really popular and so it got recommended because I've heard it, then yeah, I'll know. But if it's just I've gone to the library and I've looked, or on the Kindle it's been recommended or something like that.
Like last week before I picked them up from the airport, like maybe a day or two before, that's what I did. I just went to the library and I looked at the book covers in the young adult section. I wanted something like,
don't judge a book by its cover. I just went to the young adult section.
I sure did, and I was like, I just wanted something that was like an easy read and quick and stuff, because I knew that I didn't need to get engrossed because a bunch of our family was coming and stuff. And so I was like, this is a nice clean book cover. So I picked it up and then read it that day, and I was like, that's a really easy flow to their books. So I've read a couple of the other books offline. Or online, actually. Online from that. But for the most part, yeah, it'll just be like, just random books. They'll be like, what's the book about? And it's always like, oh, it's just a really vague description of something, too.
But yeah, I don't know if
people don't want us to get into it. If we get into a book, like, it's like, we will tell you everything. And Mom's like, I didn't want to know.
So before Chris and I started dating, but we both kind of liked each other and we're kind of hanging out. We went on like a really long walk. There was a reason, like we had to, like, because we lived in Korea and I lost my alien residency card, so we had to go and get it, and it was like, oh, it doesn't matter. I told him about the Clan of the Cave Bear series, with Gene Ull, and the first book. I told him all about the first book while we were walking, and at the end I was just like, why did I do that? I was like,
oh yeah, because it's a really thick book too. The book that book's like,
the first was not that big. No,
she just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, doesn't she? Sorry.
But I was just like, I have talked about this for like 15 minutes.
He's never going on a second date because you guys were on your first date.
No, it wasn't. That's what I'm saying.
No?
It was before when we were both like.
Well, then you're lucky you got a first date.
Yeah. And I was just like, why have I done that? Oh my gosh, I need to stop. And now we have subjected you guys to part of that. We've not told you about a whole book or anything like that. But we find this interesting because we really like books. But I'm pretty sure all three of you that are left are just here because you like our personalities and you don't really care what we're talking about.
Our mom is a really...
Our mom and all
voracious reader as well. Voracious. That's a problem when you read a lot, though, is that you don't hear the word, you just read the word, so you kind of, like, try to phonetically say it.
Yeah, but anyways, people don't say it out loud. It's just in books.
But, Mom had always wanted us to, like, read a lot, and we did read in high school and stuff, but
and when we were smaller, because, get this, guys, if I've not already told you, our school used to have this thing called Accelerated Reader. You'd read something, then you take a quiz, you get points for it, and if you got so many points each month, they took you out to, like, get pizza. Your girl got pizza every month.
But this is
when they did that.
I think about it and I'm like, that wasn't enough reading for our mom, that we read like a book a month or 2 books a month.
No,
like,
it was way more books than that. You had to read more books than that to get the point.
But still,
it
was like not enough for our mom. And like, we were like those nerdy kids that read all the books in high school that were assigned to us.
Nerdy kids. That's just what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, but they don't. You guys know. They don't.
There was one that I didn't read.
What?
That book that had like the dictionary in the back because so many of the words were foreign words. It was a book about an African like princess maybe, but it was like a lot of it was in Afrikaans, but I don't know. It was a long time ago, so I'm just making up because it could have been Swahili. I don't know, but because there were so many words that aren't in the English language, they had in the back a dictionary for all the different words. So I just kept having to be like this way and this way and this way and this way. And so I just skimmed over. I was like, I can't do that.
Oh. Well, I remember we could choose any book that we wanted to do like this bifold thing about report. Like, it wasn't just a report.
Is this your
like
Moby Dick?
And I chose Moby Dick. Like, who does that? That book is hella long. I don't know. It's probably like in between 600 and 800 pages. I can't remember. But I actually read it.
And here's the thing. If I could sit down and read an entertaining book that I enjoy, I could just go for hours and hours and hours. But if you put me a book that I don't find very interesting, or if it is, or this gonna sound really bad, it's educational, because I'm trying to like retain knowledge and information when I do it. I can't read that long. You know?
Like, I can remember in high school and middle school, I read like a ton of John Steinbeck and a ton of classics in general, but I love John Steinbeck. I read so many of his, The Red Pony,
You don't have to
Pearl.
listen.
Okay.
The Pearl is like a novella. It's really small.
Yes. But then after I started getting into more mainstream books and stuff like that, I went back to read The Wayward Son or The Wayward Bus, I think. One of the two, by John Steinbeck, and I was like,
It must be Son.
I think it's Bus. Anyways, I was like, oh my gosh, he's such a boring read. But at that time, I was just reading like classics, so he was like super interesting. But once I got into like reading mainstream books and all of this stuff on the regular, Mom was like, when I said I wanted you guys to get into reading, I didn't mean like this. She was like, this is too much. You read too much.
Yeah.
So I hope you guys had fun watching us just talk about books for the last 15 or 20 minutes, depends on when all doesn't make the cut. Yeah. But thank you for sticking around. Give us a little heart if you stuck around.
It's a thumbs up. It's a little heart on.
No, I mean in the comments, like a little heart.
Oh, yeah,
but yes, please give us a thumbs up too.
Yeah, in the comments, you go slow.
Anyways, thanks so much, guys. Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.